Toyota and Honda, two of the world's biggest automakers, aren't known for making flashy cars or high-end exotics. Quite the opposite. More often, they've been called boring. Even Honda's own designers have said so. Akio Toyoda, that company's chairman and scion of its founding family, was so frustrated with this, he once demanded no more boring cars.
The word boring and the word Lexus would never be used in the same sentence again.
We were always seen as sort of pedestrian, right? Like you buy a Camry, but it's not cool.
Despite the image, Toyota and Honda ruled the used car lot.
What do you feel about $500?
Let's do this.
These two brands and their luxury divisions hold their values better than any other. But their records aren't perfect. And on top of it, it's a chaotic time in automotive history with EVs, software, upstart brands, and looming Chinese competition. So why do Toyota and Honda hold their values so well, and can they stay on top? Toyota has topped Kelley Blue Book's best resale value list 8 times since 2014, including the last 4 consecutive years. Lexus has won the group's award 5 times. 2024 is its 3rd consecutive. Lexus won the luxury category on J.D. Power's residual awards list. Honda is another big winner. Among mainstream brands, it bested its Japanese rival in J.D. Power's ranking. Edmunds data shows overall Toyota and Honda are neck and neck, as are their higher-end Acura and Lexus brands. Honda's numbers are impressive, but Toyota's stand apart. It's the biggest automaker in the world, sells many more cars than Honda, and has a greater selection. For example, Honda doesn't have a full line of pickup trucks. Those typically have lackluster resale values, as they tend to be heavily incentivized and get beat up by owners. In addition, the higher volume means more supply that should drive down prices. Not in Toyota's case. Rival Honda have managed to get to this position without relying on some of the strategies other automakers resort to in order to sell cars, which can hurt a brand and drive down resale value. Automakers do 3 things to push volume when times are tough: incentives, fleet sales, and leasing. Take incentives. If you've ever heard that a car loses 10% in value as soon as you drive it off the lot, it's because most cars are sold with incentives, and the market factors that in when determining what your car is worth. When you do trade in your car at the dealership, the dealer is going to give you a price for it that assumes you got some kind of incentive, because chances are you have. Toyota offers very little in incentives. Fleet sales is essentially bulk sales, like to rental companies or the government. About 14% of Toyota's sales are fleet. Honda's are just 1.8%. That's far lower than Ford, Chevrolet, and Chrysler. Bulk sales usually come with discounts. It's kind of like the incentive, but not quite the same. It lowers the transaction price overall of that. A lot of fleet cars tend to have fewer bells and whistles, and their presence in the used market drives the brand's overall resale value down. Also, your buyer could decide to unload its whole fleet at once. Well, that's one of the reasons Tesla's, retention values are as low as they are. They can't control that aspect of it because they've sold a big chunk of vehicles into the marketplace. And finally, leasing. Toyota is among the companies with the lowest level of it. That hasn't always been the case. Honda, on the other hand, is among the highest. Leases usually have lower payments than purchases. It's another tool automakers use to sell more cars. But if you over-rely on it, you add more vehicles to the used market when the lease is up. It's simple supply and demand. Interesting thing with Toyota is we perhaps don't know how big Toyota could actually be because they are not really doing these sorts of activities to stoke demand artificially in the form of unnatural level of incentives or pushing out production to the fleet channel. Toyota tends to avoid a lot of these brand-destroying activities, even as their number one. This is days supply, a way of measuring how much inventory a dealer has. You want that number to be low. Lower days supply means cars are selling faster. The 3 brands with the lowest numbers, Lexus, Toyota, and Honda. Number of days it takes to sell a car for a handful of mainstream US brands. Toyota is by far the lowest. Honda is 3rd, barely edged out by Subaru. In addition to all this, these companies, especially Toyota, have strong reputations for quality, durability, and reliability. These 3 words even form a slogan at Toyota, often abbreviated as QDR. Quality and reliability helped it overcome early failures in the US market and went over a skeptical public. To make sure that they appeal to consumer taste here, Lexus and Toyota top consumer reports reliability ranking, with Mini in 3rd place and Honda and Acura in 4th and 5th. In 2024, the group began ranking 5 to 10-year-old used cars, and Toyota and Lexus topped that list too. The Honda brands don't fare nearly as well in J.D. Power's dependability study, but Toyota and Lexus top it. A lot of consumers are willing to pay more, both for the perception and the reality that a Toyota vehicle is not going to break down. There's examples of people driving their Lexuses and Toyotas well past 1 million miles. guarantee is rare, but those vehicles can certainly go the distance. These automakers are also the number 1 and number 2 sellers of hybrids in a market that can't get enough of them. It takes just 26 days for a dealer to sell a hybrid, compared with 58 days for the industry overall. Same with resale. 3-year-old used EVs hold 44% of their value. Plain gas cars 65%, hybrids 72%. Automaker profits usually hover in the high single digits to low double digits range. Every automaker is tempted to build and sell just a few more units, but car makers' costs are high and mostly fixed. About 70% of the price of a vehicle goes to the direct cost of producing it, building the engine, stamping the sheet metal, keeping the factory lights on. 2/3 of what's left is eaten up by marketing, product development, and everything else. So about 10% profit. If a company makes 1 million cars, profits don't flow until they've sold about 900,000. You want to build one more. You want to sell one more because that's closer you get to nirvana, where the profits just start flowing in. But the challenge is if the demand isn't there, that's where fleet comes in, incentivizing comes in, all kinds of things come into play. What sets Toyota and Honda apart is they tend not to build cars they aren't sure they can sell. So it's a tightrope walk in manufacturing, and nobody walks that better than Toyota. The renowned Toyota production system especially is credited with introducing revolutionary manufacturing principles, including, among other things, concepts sometimes called lean manufacturing or just-in-time production. The idea reduce waste of all kinds and improve efficiency as much as possible. Nothing is made until there is a need for it. Holds true through the entire chain. Toyota production system is probably the closest thing we have to a pull system still in the auto industry. It's called a pull system because production is pulled by demand. The reputation for quality and durability also goes back to manufacturing. On the Toyota factory floor, for example, any employee can stop the assembly line by pulling a cord if they notice a defect that allows the company to catch things early. And they're making big investments in training every worker, every maintenance worker, every engineer, in how to solve problems. They also standardize designs. Even something as simple as the hood of a car will be designed similarly across models. And when you standardize, you're making a larger volume, which reduces cost, but also you can fine-tune and work out any quality issues over years of practice. They will work on testing and retesting and fine-tuning the standard until it's almost perfect. The company also moves slowly and thoroughly, even when it takes big leaps. It considered 80 different potential technologies for its hybrid powertrain on the original Prius. It doesn't stuff cars with features customers aren't asking for, so there is less pressure to include the latest and greatest. This is also true of Honda. We've had a relentless focus on cost controls. Some brands may put a piece of equipment on a car because it's more profitable, right? And that just doesn't enter our mentality. It's what the customer wants, and at what price. You do risk losing customers to the latest and greatest. But by going with tried and true technology, it's really enabled them to say, like, look, you might miss out on a few gadgets here and there, but we're going to build a vehicle that you know is going to go forever. But that also means it rolls out new technology much later than competitors. Toyota's been criticized for this in the past, even Honda, that they're not jumping right into, full EV. Toyota and Honda buyers are the most loyal. That said, their records do have a few blemishes. They're not perfect. No one is. There has been a widening scandal over falsified safety check data in Japan. Toyota and Honda have been swept up into it. Honda said in February it will have to recall 750,000 vehicles over faulty airbags. Toyota will replace engines in over 100,000 Tundra and Lexus LX SUVs. Tacoma. The most legendary resale value is durability, where you just run into a rock. It'll be fine. Transmission recall, complete replacement. Toyota's V6 twin-turbo recalling the engines, right? So we're talking about major component failures. And this is where you start to see maybe some consumers might start to break. But the transition to EVs, while rocky, won't stop, and Toyota's reputation for moving slowly has earned it criticism. Toyota was long the leader. Known for alternative power trades, they more or less invented the hybrid industry as we know it today, bringing the original Prius to market and continuing to iterate on that technology. And yet a new technology came around and they're a laggard in an EV transition. The brand has only 2 EVs, the bZ4X and the Lexus RZ. The bZ4X rollout was by many accounts a disaster. They literally had the wheels falling off. They had a stop sale on the bZ4X, and that was kind of like of all brands. Younger buyers are a bit less brand loyal than previous generations, and right now many say the future is basically anyone's game. Any incumbent, no matter how well run or beloved, faces threats. The variation now in ideas and innovation that has come to the auto industry is, I think, on a scale we haven't seen before. And what that means, the winners and losers are not always guaranteed. One of the strengths of Chinese manufacturers, for example, is their ability to move very quickly. They can release new versions of vehicles within a year or two of the previous model, a fraction of the typical time it takes automakers in developed markets.